Do you believe in accountable love?
Welcome to Accountable Love, home of the Love Snobs, where love is a group journey. My name is Jerry.
My name's Aziz.
And today we have a special guest, Jessica.
Hi.
Home of the Love Snobs, Love Snobs, Love Snobs. The Love Snobs have surfaced. You know, the people that actually use honesty to communicate. The genuine friends that refuse to let you feel sorry for yourself. Yes, those people.
You know, the friends that collect your tears every time life makes your eyes rain. The love snobs, the people that don't allow you to settle. Support your dreams, but don't support you sleeping with just anybody.
You know, the friends that are so judgmental they ask you to stay away from negative people and encourage you to surround yourself with positive people.
Yes, that friend. The friends that love you even when you refuse to love yourself.
You know,
the love snobs.
So, you know, the normal question, the first question is always when we have a new guest is, what does accountable love mean to you? So, Jessica, what does accountable love mean to you?
To me, accountable love means to base your life decisions on the group and, the greater good for your family or your tribe. And, you're not just looking out for yourself, but you're looking out for everybody that you care for.
Definitely.
I think it also means that, you're only as good as your word.
Okay.
So if you're going to say that you're going to do something, you need to do it. And also for your significant other,
Mm-hmm.
They need to do the same. You hold them to what their values and beliefs are as well.
Definitely.
And it's your job and duty to hold each other accountable.
Excellent. Yeah, so, this is the third season of the Accountable Love podcast. And, the third season, the title is the adults in the room, being the adult in the room, excuse me. And, when you hear being the adult in the room, what do you think of?
I think being an adult in the room means that you need to rise above everybody's, and including yourselves, emotion. You need to keep in the forefront of your mind what your goals are, what your agenda is to do, and make your choices and make your decisions based on that. Don't let the emotions get the best of you. And if somebody is getting emotional, don't feed into that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So how often do you find yourself being the adult in the room?
Well, I teach preschool, so a lot, but in life, I think I've developed that a real lot because of my son. I was a very passive person. I've known Aziz since college, and I kind of just agreed with everybody. I was like, okay, well, if you say so, that's what we'll do. And when my son was born, he had a ton of medical complications. He still does. And I found myself just, again, agreeing with the doctors, whatever you say, whatever you know best. And it wasn't in the best interest of my son. And, my gut, my women's intuition, whatever you want to call it, was saying otherwise. And I needed to step up and have the confidence to be able to say, no, that's not right. That's not what we need to do here. I think we need to do this. So I'm the adult in the room a lot when it comes to my son and his what he needs.
I will hope we all are the adults in the room when it comes to our children.
Well, no, but I think when it comes to doctors, it's very easy to just be like, you know what? They went to school for this. They know best.
It's their specialty. I mean, you always should weigh it all out. But when it comes to your personal relationships, how often are you the adult in the room, would you say?
I think I struggle with it. I struggle with it a lot with my mother. Mm-hmm. I get very emotional with her.
Okay.
And it's something that I will continue to work on. I think I've grown recently with it. But it's always something that I kind of need, like, I need that Post-it note on the mirror saying, like, don't let the emotions get the best of you, you know? When it comes to relationships with, you know, significant others, I feel like I do a decent job with that. I feel like I communicate pretty well, and I let, you know, him know what I want and what I'm looking for and what I need. So
Okay. What about friendships? Like, not
I
just now, but like through the course of your life.
think when I was younger, I had a lot of friends, again, based on that kind of whatever you say, agreeable personality. And again, as I've grown and had my son, I've seen the people in my life that weren't really my true friends, who I thought they were. They kind of fell by the wayside when things got tough.
Okay.
So I have few friends, and I am completely dedicated to them. But I don't need a lot of friends. I think I think it would be great to have a lot, but not too many people have stepped up to do that.
Okay, definitely. So like we heard you mention that, you know, through the course you've been very passive through the course of life. You've been passive and agreeable and things of that nature. And did you believe honestly that that was the best way to be, or what caused you to be that way?
I think that's just how I was raised. You know, I was brought up to be a good little girl, Catholic. You do what you're told. Get good grades in school, and you sit quietly and raise your hand when you want to answer a question. And that's just, I guess that's kind of what I grew up with. And I learned the hard way that that's you can't go through life like that. At least I can't go through life like that and be truly happy,
I
because, you
mean,
know,
you could be
my
convicted. Do you believe that people in general should adapt that
adapt.
mentality? The mentality, like speak up, say what they want.
I do. I think there's a way to do it, but you can't just be rude to people. You know, I still think that you need to have
Isn't
some
there,
common courtesy.
yeah, but isn't there like a fine line between being rude and isn't that like subjective? Like if I tell you something that I may not think is rude, I'm just being honest about what's happening. But because it may have struck a chord, or you feel like it's private, like you may think that it's rude. You know what I mean? So isn't that subjective?
I do. I think intention has a lot to play in it. Are you telling me something to embarrass me in front of other people, or are you telling me something that's going to make you a good friend? If I got something on my face and you're going to sit there and stare at me when I got something on my face, you know, that's not being a good friend. You know, you need to
Speak
help
up.
each other out.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, if you're going to be extra about it and start making fun of me and degrade me about it, well, that's a different story. So I think intention has a lot to do with it.
Wouldn't you think reading intentions and going back to what Jerry was saying, we, you know, like obviously we're New Yorkers. We grew up with a bunch of culture around us, a bunch of different cultures, a bunch of different things. And like I'm from Spanish Harlem, Jerry's from Spanish Harlem. And when most people meet us when we go out of town, we're considered rude to people because we actually snap on each other for fun, but we really believe it's building character. We actually poke at people's insecurities and poke fun at people's, like they fail or we make fun of them, but we strongly believe through our culture that it's building character. Like it's
Yeah.
teaching them how to really, really be strong when it comes to other people. So like a lot of our friends said, I've been all over the place and it's like nothing now because, you know, we grew up in this kind of culture. We grew up in this kind of system. We grew up in this kind of understanding. Whereas most people would consider it rude.
Yeah.
But are you guys bussing each other, or are you bussing complete strangers?
No,
No,
we're
it's people
busting
that
each
we
other.
have. It's each other. It's like people we have
Right.
relationships with. But still in all, like I can tell Aziz, like, hey, your breath stinks. And he can think that I'm being rude. You know what I mean? Like But the reality is he needs to brush his teeth. Like, there's no, when you're being honest about certain things, that there's not a way to sound like, you can change your tone so you can sound nicer or what appears to be nice, but there's no easy way or better way to say it, right? I can say, hey, I could be passive aggressive and say, hey, Aziz, I could start off like, hey, Aziz, did you brush your teeth today? And he's like, no, why? I'm like, oh, because I think I smell something. When I could just say, hey, whether he brushes teeth or not, your breath is smelling a little tart, you need to go brush your teeth again. Yeah. Whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and I should be able to say that without him thinking I'm being rude. Same for me. If I look a certain way, if I'm looking rough, he can say, hey, you going out like that? And I'm like, yeah, why? Instead of you cut all of that, I'm like, hey, you look a little rough, where you going? You know what I mean? Like,
right. And I completely agree with you guys when it comes to the people that you care about.
Definitely.
I meant like, you know, somebody up on the street and you have no idea who they are and you walk up and like, yo, your breath stinks. Like that's a totally different.
Yeah, but I'm saying speaking up for yourself. So we was just talking about your personal relationships and when you have friendships, and you was like, well, I guess I do it, but we was asking you to really be convicted in it. Like,
yeah,
you learn from it as a mistake. So you would teach it to other people. When you see somebody else being passive, you're like, listen, you're going down a slippery slope, because it doesn't end with your happiness. It doesn't end with people having a clear understanding of who you are. You know what I mean? It doesn't end with you being real. Like, you consider yourself being nice, but really you're being fake and phony because nobody truly knows who you are.
No, and I feel like I used to live for other people's happiness.
Definitely.
And you give, and then there's nothing left of you.
Definitely. So that's what we was really touching on. Like, when you say it's rude, yeah, walking up and invading other people's space is different. But even with perfect strangers, there needs to be a certain direct, like, we come from the school of thought, like, there's nothing stronger than a straight line. There's no more clarity than a straight line. So you should be direct no matter what. But like you said, intention. Are you doing it to hurt a person's feelings? Are you doing it to make fun of the person? Are you doing it to degrade the person or to berate the person, or, you know, things of that nature? I think that's the difference. Are you making fun of their insecurities just to feel better about yourself? That's a whole different understanding versus you're trying to support them and you're trying to help them. You know, like, I could even tell a story of how I learned how not to touch a blind person in the street. You know, a blind lady was ready to get on the train, and she couldn't get there. She couldn't get to the door. So my first instinct, obviously, is to support her because the door's ready to close. So I was ready to risk it all. And she cursed me out. And then she told me straight up, you do not touch a blind lady. You have to ask permission first. You have to talk to them first. But my instincts was what? To protect her. So my intentions was up to par, but I got a lesson from it. So now I, know it's just like CPR. You have to ask first. You have to ask permission before you support somebody that's blind. So that would just be an example of how we understand, even through intention, there's still certain protocols you have to follow once you have information and education.
Absolutely. Yeah. But a lot of times you got to learn that the hard way, just like you did. You got cussed out. But you're not going to do that again, though. You learn from that.
I mean, even in the same situation, I might do it again because I thought she was in danger,
Right. Or if you didn't know she was blind or something. Yeah. Definitely. But exactly.
So it is a lesson learned. But at the same time, like, intentions, there's two parts to it. You know what I mean? Intentions and understanding the person's likes and dislikes. You have to know both. Because if you're with somebody that really don't think that you should be nice, like, you should tell them things direct, and it's going to kill who you are as a person, and you might not even be friends with that person. You're still going to respect the fact that they don't want to be told anything directly, but you're going to have to make a decision based on that, because you're going to compromise yourself if you are a direct person. Right. So I think there's two things we always got to take into account: the intentions and, whether the person likes it or doesn't like it, and then see from there to make that decision. But, we heard you, like, obviously your closest relationship right now, is your child. And how is it entering relationships, like building new friendships or building new partnerships, or, how is that with your, the outside life or your personal life, or building personal relationships outside of that?
It's definitely something that it's complicated. It's complicated with, I think, with any children. You know, if you have kids, you got to put their needs first. But you know, with mine, he's a lot. And I need to know with any relationship that I have if that person is going to be able to be in our lives, is going to be able to handle how different my life looks compared to people with typical kids. You know, I have a friend who she gets very queasy when it comes to anything medical. So the first time that she met my son was when we were in Philly in the NICU, and God love her, like she knew going into it that this was tough for her, and she came anyways. It's a, you know, 2-hour drive, and she got in and she saw him hooked up to all the machines and the tubes and, you know, the beeping and all that, and she turned pure white. She had to sit down. She's like, I'm gonna pass out. But you know, it meant so much to me because she did something that she knew she was probably going to faint over, and but she was there, you know, and I will never forget that.
Definitely.
And there are people that they face it head on, and you know, when it comes to kids or people with special needs, a lot of people, they don't know how to react. There's not a lot of, I think, people don't want to talk about it. So when their kid points to my kid and says, what's wrong with him? Or look at his glasses, or look at what's on his ears, or, you know, whatever, parents immediately shush them. And nothing makes a special needs parent feel worse than to be overlooked and to be shushed and to be shied away. Mm-hmm. The best thing to do is come up and talk to us and say, hey, my son was wondering what's on his ears, or why does he walk like that, or what's that thing in his stomach? Because we want to educate people, we want to make connections, and I think that's what it's about. Bottom line is, people, no matter what they look like or what they have going on, it's about connection.
Definitely.
So you had the opportunity to educate some of these parents, or, you know, children in passing, or I don't know if you and Joey go to the park, or if there's ever a time when there are other kids that you are in the same area and you can educate at that time. Do you have those opportunities?
They're few and far between, because like I said, we encounter a lot of people that just make very rash decisions. I can remember I was in the grocery store with him, and I was pushing him in the shopping cart, and he was piled with toilet paper and napkins and paper towels because he physically could not sit up. He had no strength. And a woman was with a teenage daughter, and they were walking by, and they said, they pointed to me and to him, and they said, that's what happens when you do drugs when you're pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people that, at least the comments that I have heard, have been very harsh. And I've definitely had to develop a thick skin when it comes to that. But I notice a lot of people, they'll come up and try to talk to him, and he's not responding, he's deaf. So immediately I'm like, you know, he can't hear you, he's not being rude, he's deaf. And they immediately say, oh, I'm so sorry, or I'll pray for you. And I'm like, we don't need to be prayed for. Like, I appreciate it, but you can wave hi. And it's just those simple things that I think they feel more embarrassed than anything.
Definitely. I think, like, this brings us straight back to what we was talking about with dealing with strangers. You see, like, they're treating you like you were saying that we should treat people outside. Like, yeah, it is taught to us, if you see a kid with special needs, it's rude to point, stare, look, even ask questions.
Yeah.
That's what's told us. But you have a different approach, because now you have a child with special needs, and now you understand the culture more. And now you understand that you're a minority now. So you get to see, like, there's a lot of things being taught that aren't basically what you want, because you're being isolated, you're being shunned. You're
Mhm.
not, you don't really encounter people being themselves, because they look at you and they automatically see charity. They
Right.
automatically see disgust. They don't see the person. So do you experience that now when you get into more intimate relationships? Do you find yourself experiencing that same level of like charity and being looked down upon and things of that nature?
Sometimes, I think I appreciate when, and I tell people right up front, ask me anything. A question to me, like, you can't insult me by asking a question, and you're not going to understand or fully know us until, if something's on your mind, you need to ask me about it.
Definitely.
But I think I'm pretty selective when it comes to who I let in Joey's life. I will say when he was small, and when I was pregnant with him, I had a couple other acquaintances, and we were all pregnant at the same time. So all of our kids grew up together, and I could remember, all that they would get together for play group and swim lessons, and we were never invited. And it hurt. So I think right now I kind of have like focus eyes on who I'm gonna let in, because I don't want, I'm protective of him. Definitely. And it was my fault for not stepping up and saying, hey, could we come too?
Definitely.
But
yeah, this is the Accountable Love show. So
at that time, yep. So at that time, I was like, all my emotions, I was feeling hurt, and I was crying, and I was like, I can't believe they would do this to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that I had that opportunity to approach them and say, hey, can I bring Joey?
Definitely. Or confront them about how you was feeling.
Yeah.
Because we typically, you typically taught that the nice person is, or the passive person is, the greatest person in the world, but really they're doing harm to themselves, and they're actually doing harm in your relationships, because they're not really truly letting you in. They're telling you what you need to hear, what they want to hear. They're always in their head.
Yeah.
They're not fully living. You fully don't understand what they like, don't like. They're just, trying to survive, trying to survive every relationship instead of living within the relationship. So, we find that to be, it's a little hard. I mean, like you said, we met in college, and you already know we was from different cultures, different backgrounds, and I wasn't changing for anybody. So we all knew, you either get down but at the same time, I always encourage you to speak your mind, say what you have to say. Was that difficult for you?
No, I think, and I'm sure you remember, but we met at a time when I was at my lowest. My boyfriend had just died in college. Mm-hmm. And you were the only person that was not treating me like I was going to fall apart and die right next to him. Definitely. And I believe I asked you that. I said to you, why aren't you acting like everyone else around me? Why aren't you walking on eggshells? Do you remember that?
Of course.
Do you remember what you said?
Because you're the one that still has life. You still have to live. I want to understand you. I want to understand what you're going through versus sitting there and just treating you a certain way. How you want to be treated. And the thing is, you was feeling guilty because the relationship wasn't going well. Mm-hmm. Everybody looked at you like, oh, that's his girlfriend. And you're thinking like, yeah, I was not going to be with him.
I was going to break up with him. Yeah.
So, we did meet, and it does seem like we keep coming in contact when, you're going through things. But at the end of the day, one thing about me, and one thing what made our relationship good is because we both believed in some form of accountability, right?
Well, and I find comfort in that. I find a lot of comfort in somebody who's just blatantly honest, who's going to tell you how it is. And there's I get in my head, and for when there's people that they don't speak their mind, you can be constantly wondering what they're thinking, or if what they're saying is really what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And with you, it was a no-brainer, because you said whatever you thought.
Definitely.
And I'm like, this is refreshing to finally have someone that I know exactly where we stand. And that's what I strive to be,
Definitely. At all
But
times.
how was that when he would say things that you didn't agree with, you don't want to deal with, you don't want
I
to
would cry. I would shut down. I would. And it would take me a couple days to really like reflect on it and think about it. And then, go back, and usually it was me being like, you know what, you're right. And for a while, that was hard as a woman to say, oh, you're right. That's a big thing between anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now, it doesn't bother me at all to admit when I'm wrong. I think it's growth. If you are constantly thinking that you're in the right, you're not going anywhere. You're at a standstill.
When you looked over at it from afar, what did you think? Being a basketball player, always walking around, head high, focused.
I think that I thought we had absolutely nothing in common.
Mm-hmm.
And we come from different worlds. I'm like small town, Pennsylvania, you go to the corner store, and your guys are like big city life. So
Was you intrigued? Did you find yourself intrigued by the city life, or did you really just want to be the small town girl, go to school, graduate, and go back to a small town?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, I wanted to stay in Reading. I did until I was student teaching, and I saw what those little kids went through, and I realized, I was out to change the world. That's why I became a teacher. I was going to change everybody's life and I was going to rescue the whole world. And then I student taught in inner city Reading, and I'll never forget, a little girl walked in, and her whole eye was swollen shut.
Oh, no.
Her whole side of her face was purple.
Mm.
And I said to the teacher, I said, what happened to her? And she said, oh, she knocked over her daddy's pot on the coffee table. She won't do that again. And, there was obviously like everybody was involved, and I realized, like, I'm not saving the whole world. That's, I can only do so much. So I lived in Reading for a little bit, and I moved back home after my uncle died. He was 39. And at that exact same time, the place I was living at was burglarized when I was at work.
Wow.
So it kind of all happened the same week. And I'm like, you know what, I'm out. I need to go home. So that's how I got back here.
So do you ever feel like trauma? Because like it's trauma after trauma after trauma. Like seems like every story you tell ends in like trauma. Do you believe like that hurts you, like when it comes to your personal relationships, when it comes to getting close to people?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think everybody has trauma in their life.
Definitely.
It just happens that mine, I think a lot of people go through internal trauma. Mine, it's your life. It's what you live. So it's, I guess, I don't want to say I'm used to it, but I don't really think about it, really. You can't control it. And I was all about control for the longest time. And I realized the only thing that you can control is how you react to the situations that happen to you. Definitely. And you could either, lose yourself in them, or I use the analogy, like you could let it dim you, or you could grow stronger and let it brighten you. But
So I would like to go back to the part where you said that in a lot of your relationships, you're the adult in the room, or you've been the adult, and minus the doctors, because again, as a parent, you're gonna advocate for your child, even in uncomfortable situations. You get the strength, the courage to advocate for certain things when it comes to somebody that you deem a high authority, or maybe have a better say because they studied or whatever. But when it comes to your personal relationships, being the adult in the room works for you because that's the type of relationship you like to be direct. You like to get things. You like to be direct, right? So because of that, and you like people to be direct with you. But how many of the people that you're around are giving you that same feedback, are being just as honest? Or is it something that you have to convince them, or is it something that, you have to encourage them? Hey, you can say this in this way, it's okay. I know, like, I have done that has been like the common theme in my relationships as well. Like, I'm going to be honest, so I want them to be just as honest, and they kind of tiptoe around it because they're not as comfortable. Do you experience the same thing?
I do, and I kind of shy away from those people that, I give them a chance. I let them know that you can ask me anything. I find that a lot of people kind of flow back and forth in my life if they need some real sound advice. Like, if they don't know what to do, they'll call me because they know that I'm gonna give them my honest opinion. Or but I have one very close friend, and she's a coworker, and her life is a lot like mine. But I had heard about her prior to meeting her, and I was always told, like, oh, look out. Like, she's a little tornado. Like, wait, you don't want to mess with her. And it just so happened that she had moved across the hall from me, and I was like a wreck over it because I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, I don't need any more drama in my life. And I met her, and she's now my best friend. But she is, again, brutally honest. She's like a no nonsense kind of person. It just so happens that she also has a child with disabilities. But again, and I don't know if that's what has made us stronger indirectly, is kind of, we didn't have a choice. This is, she's divorced as well. But she tells it how it is, and her heart is always in the right place. So, but as far as like significant others, I'm with somebody now, and it's new, but things are going well. I'm the one who kind of initiates all of the topics and the questions and stuff like that, but I don't have a problem with that, just because, I talk to you guys, and not everybody has this amazing opportunity. A lot of people don't even know that it exists. They just flow through life, to not think like you have a direction to go to. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does have the outlet. So, like, first off, I want to address the brutally honest comment.
Yeah.
Only people that call it brutally honest are the people who are trying to make it a negative thing to be direct. She's just honest.
Yeah.
And
I don't have a problem with the brutally part. Okay, but that, in my eyes, that's not.
No, I don't think. I'm just saying it for our listeners. I know for a fact you meant it as a compliment.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it for our listeners because when we was on Let's Talk Relationships, when we had our Let's Talk Relationship webinar, we was talking to the people on the panel, and one of them was saying how, oh, but you are brutally honest. And I'm like, I'm far from brutally honest, because my intent is not to harm somebody. And brutal means that my intent is to harm. So I know the definition of brutal, and I'm not accepting it. So at the end of the day, I'm honest, I'm direct, you know what I mean, I'm straightforward, which straightforward means absence of pretense. I don't have a negative pretense, right? So I'm looking at it as such. So when I hear brutal, it's automatically, when you know something, it triggers something, because you use it so frequently, but it's really was created by quote unquote passive people, right? It was created by people who feel offended by the truth. not people who embrace the truth. So I always, always try to correct it as much as possible. Like, they're just being honest, and that's it. That's good enough. And sometimes being honest will hurt feelings, but they're just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just one side of it. The second side is, when we sit back and we kind of look at, like, you seek, like, when we was in school, how many people you would say was in school with us?
I think there was like 1,200. It was small. Our
Yeah,
school was small.
it wasn't big at all, but all them people knew who I was. All them people went to games, things of that nature. They knew who I was. I was loud as can be. But only a few people actually walked towards, like, the man that's actually gonna say what's on his mind, that's actually gonna really ask you a bunch of questions and truly get to know you. So when you dealing in your relationships, you were saying, like, you bring up a lot of the questions, but now he does know that he can seek these things out through podcasts. He can seek these things out through TED Talks, through, there's just so many things, there's so many resources out there. So he can be really engaged in the discussion, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we all do it. We let our significant others off the hook. We let our friends off the hook. Because they, we feel some validation from it. We feel, like we're protecting them. We feel like we have something to give. We feel like we have something to offer. But we don't really realize, which happens to me a lot, that you're enabling. And then when now you're looking for them to carry the relationship when you're sick or when you can't, you realize they can't carry it. You realize they can't support it. You realize you have been supporting 75% of the relationship. And so if you fall back to 50, who knows? Do you think you experienced that? I'm not saying now, but just in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have experienced that in my past. And, when major things have come up and I needed to divert my attention to them, that's where ultimately the relationship fell, because I was looking for him to step up and carry us through, and it didn't happen. So I absolutely can attest to that. But then, again, being accountable in it, I could have told him,
Definitely.
you need to step up.
Definitely.
I can't do this right now. And those words were never spoken. So 50-50, right? 50 my fault, 50 his.
This is the Accountable Love podcast. I wouldn't necessarily say 50 yours.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say 50 yours either. I think
I would say it's about 30, 37.
Yeah.
But you only could be accountable for what you didn't do. Because a part of signing on to a relationship, a part of signing on to whether it's a friendship or partnership, is understanding that now I'm accountable for somebody else's needs, wants, and desires, and I have to do it in that order: the needs, the wants, and the desires, right? So I have to have a clear understanding of where I'm going, right? So I wouldn't say that, yeah, you didn't actually speak up, but a piece of you was like, why should I have to, right? And a piece of him was like, how do I know this? And that's when we really get into this weird place. But 70% of it is knowing it's your turn to step up. 30% is, yeah, you should have probably said something when he didn't step up.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing happened first. He didn't step up. So that's 70% right there. Somebody say they're going to catch you and they don't catch you. You can't say, well, I should have relied on you to catch me. I shouldn't have relied on you to catch me. Yeah, you should rely on it. You know what I'm saying? But you could have said, oh, you didn't catch me, so I'm not jumping again. You could have told them what happened based on the fact that they didn't step up. Because it goes back to with your friends, or, I would say that they probably always was just your acquaintances. They seen that you had a child with special needs, and they didn't step up. They didn't include your child. They didn't educate themselves, because that's what friends do.
Mm-hmm.
Friends look at something as an opportunity to, let's have the discussion. You get what I'm saying? The opportunity, let's learn, let's build, let's get closer. You have hardship, let's get closer from it. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, it's good to be accountable, and we recommend it all the time. But know the percentage you're truly being accountable for.
I know, and then I think, you know, when the opportunity does, when you do say, you know, I need help, or, you know, I need you to be here for me, and they don't, I think it's very clear, and it should be, you know, steps need to be taken to, it sounds harsh, but like cut that person out of your life. Like,
Definitely.
if they're not going to hold up their end of the bargain, what are you doing hanging on to it? Because for me, it only causes, if they could do it once, they're going to do it again. And why have them in your life?
Yeah, I think that was Jerry's issue when we were growing up all the time. We used to always have back and forths about, you know, like, how long does it take for you to, because she knows better. You know, it's not like she doesn't know the information. She knows the information, but she also was battling with upbringing and giving people chances.
Well, the thing is that so you always have that, you know better, you do better, right? So I learned along the way, right? And then I will connect myself with people that didn't really know better either, right? So it's like, I learned this information, I learned this stuff, so I'm teaching it to you. And it took me a while to get it together and to really make it a mentality and move on. And so I'm allowing them that same space, but at what cost? You know what I mean? Like, at what cost? Because the same way that I sought out for the extra knowledge, or I connected myself with people that will give me that, will break things down for me and let me know that there's a whole other world of ways to look at things that I didn't even know exist, then they could be able to do the same. You know what I mean? And so that's where I got tripped up a lot in that. Like, they're not where I'm at, but I was enabling them too, because I wasn't really necessarily forcing them to get to where I was either. It's just, I provide the information, I know better, I was the adult in the room, and that was kind of like the cycle of it until, you know, Aziz used to challenge me on that too. Like, but you put things in place so that you can be in the place that you are right now. Why they're not doing the same? Like, you're bringing them this information, you're bringing them this knowledge, you're having the discussion. Why is it that they keep getting, you know, you're not holding them to the same standard that you're holding yourself to, or that now that they can hold you to? So it's that fine line, right? Of, I know better, I do better. I'm around people that don't quite know better, but as long as they have you in your life, as long as they had me in their life, they now know better. So what's the excuse? Mm-hmm. Right?
And then, but then you kind of hang on to them because you're like, well, maybe it'll be tomorrow. Maybe they'll decide the next day.
Well, I used to always say, like, Aziz, you gave me chance after chance after chance, but did he? Like, he played me to, like, he always left the door open, but we weren't hanging tight because of it. You know what I mean? So I'm still hanging tight with these people. Like, I'm not even like creating the distance saying, hey, when you get it together, I'll be here on the other side of the door, and then maybe we could figure this out. I'm still going hard with them. He's like, no. Like, if you're going to keep making excuses for your behavior, then we're not on the same page. And until we're on the same page, then we can't hang as closely as we used to. And that's the difference. Like, I'm always committing to the potential, or I'm always hanging out with people that have potential, or would hang out with people that had the potential, but that's not enough. Right? And I think, and that's that weird place that we get into, because we don't, you know, people make us, they say the negative things, like the brutally honest, or the you on your high horse, or now you think you're better than me, or now this, that, and the third. But when you raise your standards, right, and you change and you create boundaries, you are healthy boundaries, you are in a better place, and that's okay. And I never wanted to be looked at as, oh, you think you all that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to be in that place. So what I did was I kind of dumbed down, I made excuses, and I just continued to have those relationships until it eventually came to a head, because it doesn't really work. If you're trying to connect with somebody that's not on the same page with you, then don't have the same beliefs and don't communicate the same, it really doesn't work. So I was holding on, because I kind of, in the back of my mind, knew that it probably wasn't going to work. If they didn't step up, it wasn't going to work.
I would even go one step further. In the back of your mind, you knew you wasn't dealing with an equal.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
The relationship that you knew you was going to be, you was going to basically have just his profession of a teacher for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. Like you
Yeah.
was gonna decide that you was gonna be a teacher for the rest of your life when you truly wanted to equal. So you signed on for somebody who needs you, and that gave you some form of self-worth. But you realized what you wanted was somebody who wanted you and somebody who was your equal and somebody who gave back to you. And then you was constantly giving, so you drank. So you
Well,
feel a little guilty that you kind of told them, oh, this is going to be the relationship, and you're kind of backing out. So that's why most people typically hold on to the, oh, well, you know, they're working on it or they're getting better. I mean, the other obvious is, you know, the sex is good. The other obvious is, you know what I mean? They
but
have
I'm not even
money
saying, but
or
it's not
they're
even,
giving you something. They're
but it's
giving you
not even
something in
with just.
return that you don't want to give up. Those are other things, reasons. But the ultimate underlying reason is that you know you signed a contract that you really wasn't happy with.
But it's not just with a romantic partner. It's with
No,
friends
I
as
know it's
well.
just
So
with
it's not
friends. I'm
just about.
saying I was just using that as an example, like
Oh.
it happens. So, you know, that's what I was talking about. Like it's not just I just wanted Jessica to know it's not just Jessica that goes through it. It's not just, you know, it's not just like you're a transformation. You're somebody that she can see, okay, if I continue to do this, you know what I mean, I'll never ascend to actually finding somebody that that's my equal because I'm always constantly, well, giving passes, you know, but we also don't recommend just cutting people off either. Like
Yeah, have the
have the
discussion.
discussion, see where they at, see if they want to change. And if they truly want to change, then, you know, you kind of like, okay, I'm going to see how much, if it's worth it. Like if their pros outweigh their cons. You kind of doing math at all times, right? You're always kind of measuring, making sure that this person, you know, they're a valuable person, their character's good. They just don't get it. Versus somebody who really doesn't want to, who really started resenting you because you had it all together and they didn't. A person who never had an idea, never wanted to truly change, but wasted years of your life because they wanted you at that particular time, but now they don't quite want you anymore.
And I think there's the guilt of you entered the relationship one way, and as the relationship progressed, you kind of changed, you switched up on them. So the person that they met is not the person that they are, that's current. And I think, and that's another thing, that's another area where I used to kind of get tripped up on as well, because I felt guilty. Like I changed the relationship. Now I want you to change with me, and and now where there's a disconnect. And so just not, and that was my way of taking responsibility, is staying in the relationship, right? Instead of saying the reality is, you're right, I started the relationship this way, now I changed it to this is where I'm at. Do you want to, is that a place you see yourself? If not, then we can have that discussion. Like I didn't do it that way. It was, I just kept them around because I felt I took all the responsibility and said, you know what, I was wrong for starting a relationship this way. And I kind of set you up to believe that I'm this person, but I'm really not. Or I changed along the way, or I got insight along the way. So now I'm no longer that person. And it's okay though, because you don't really have to change as much as I did. You know what I mean? Like I was still grasping for straws and holding on because I didn't really want to end the friendship, because like, as you said, there was something within that friendship that I wanted, whether it was the fun, there was the things we had in common. If I was dating them, it's because I wanted the partnership. You know, there was like certain things that I held on to, but it gets to this weird place when when you want to be accountable, but it's like when accountability goes wrong, because, you know, like, was I truly accountable? Like, no, I wasn't.
But I think too, there's also, like in my situation, I went into my marriage, one person, and then, you know, there's things that happen. You know, we had Joey, and that turned everything, our lives were completely different, and we became different people.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't his fault. It was nobody's fault. It's just how it happened. And by the time I think we realized that we were two different people, we were looking for two different things, we were viewing life and happiness two different ways. What a family should be, you know, how are we going to cope with this? How are we going to live and not just survive, but I want it to be happy. You know, yeah, Joey has a lot going on, I don't know how long he's going to live. Hopefully, you know, he outlives me. But I don't know that. And you can't live your life waiting for the other shoe to drop, or just basically surviving. So I think there are situations or things that happen and they make or break a person. And then you kind of have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to remain in this relationship or not. And unfortunately, that's what happened with me. You know, and I care deeply for my ex-husband. You know, he's my son's father. But together we weren't on the same page anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like we talked about, like that's good to understand, and it makes, you know, the fact that you came to the conclusion to get a divorce a little easier, because, you know, like we were no longer on the same page. But when we talked, like last week, we talked about in our Let's Talk relationship discussion, we talked about, you know, how it's so easy, especially for a woman, right, who's in a relationship, to say, you know what, I had this baby, so that's going to take over my whole entire life, and then forget the relationship, right? Or the job, or, you know, I have this job, and in order for me to make partner, I have to put in all these hours, and everything falls behind the wayside. But those discussions are not, like those things are not talked about before the kid, before, you know, you decided to work at the law firm or whatever the case may be. And I think it's really important that although society gives women especially a pass to, hey, go chase your career, you're a mom, nothing else matters but the fact that you're a mom, we really need to be honest about that. And when we are connecting with people and building partnerships and friendships, we need to be clear on what our priorities are. So if you are a mom and you know for a fact that you want to give 100%, when I, like, you got me now, but when I have this kid, it's all about the kid, that should be said. It shouldn't be this emotional thing that, you know, I feel this connection, I carried this baby for 9 months, and now you have to understand that now that I'm breastfeeding, and now that, you know, the kid is my everything, you just have to take the back burner. Like, most men would do it, but it's wrong.
But
you know, like,
and I feel too that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
go ahead.
you.
Oh, no, this is what we do.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
but I feel too that, like, society now, it's looked down upon if you are a wife that truly loves their husband. Like, it's almost like women like to cut their husbands. Like, oh, he's a man cult. Oh, it's worse for us. Like, and just like
the divide. Yeah.
Yes, and they like that. Like, people like that. They think it's funny and it's cute. And if you look at a couple that is completely devoted to each other, what are people saying? That makes me sick. Look at those two. They can't really be like that. That's fake. Yeah. But it makes no sense, because everybody strives for that, and then once you get married, it goes out the window. Like, at least, you know, I can only speak from the woman's perspective. Like, now all of a sudden you're cutting your husband, and you're putting him down, and he's this and he's that, and he's useless, and he's lazy, and what happened to the person that you just committed your life to?
You have more people to relate to if you go that route.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know.
About relatability for people as opposed to health and being in healthy, equal relationships.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna be popular amongst acquaintances because you can rag on your husband?
Definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, some people will prefer that. But the reality is, like you said, you're going through life with this person. You signed up for this person. The person should be able to get the best of you, no matter what other outside influences rock your life. Like, you know, as we get older, things happen. Like you said, you know, you get burglarized, family members are dying. You may have a cancer scare. You may have a kid with special needs. Like, there's so many different things. You may get laid off. You know, so you have to make sure that who you have around you and that in your tight circle are there to help support when the chips fall, or when you need that extra support. And it's not about, like, you know, it's like Aziz and I just did a message on the move that we didn't put out yet, but it's about, you know, men being from Mars and women being from Venus, and people being okay with that. You know what I mean? Or people being, you know, or it's okay that men and women are on different sides of the spectrum. But to your point,
trade secrets, man. You telling trade secrets. Go ahead.
Say that again.
I said you telling trade secrets. Go ahead.
I know, but it's funny that you mentioned that we're talking about that because we just discussed it. Like it's not, we think it's cute that there's the divide, but what does that really mean? Like how strong of a foundation is it that in order for me to connect with my friends, I have to make it seem like I'm miserable at home, or that my husband can't do anything. I have to watch him. You know how men are. They don't. We by nature are more meticulous than men are. You know what I mean? So we're gonna look at things and do things slightly different, right? But that doesn't mean that he's just full of crap for it, or he's just not pulling his weight, or he's contributing in a different way. Or if there's the guys that are aloof, and then they get passes for that. Well, you know how men are. Like I ask them to get milk, they get soda, and I ask them to get soda, they get milk, and like it's like they don't listen and blah blah blah. It's like there's all these. But if we're connecting on negativity,
exactly, yeah,
then that's a problem in any area, whether it's with your man, with your children. Like you see all these mommy blogs about, it got to be 5 o'clock somewhere, because these kids are driving me nuts and I need to drink, and like it's good for entertainment, but is your life for pure entertainment, or are you really living it in a healthy way?
It reminds me of, like, when people talk about the news, they only put the drama on the news.
Yeah.
They only put one side on the news. You're only seeing that from their perspective, but what's really happening?
Yeah.
And I was totally guilty in my marriage for doing that, totally, and I regret that. I do, because that was me. I was constantly making jokes like that, and now looking back on it, I'm like, that was a huge mistake, because that it divided us. It just pushed us further and further away.
You
got people to co-sign what you were thinking. You got people to stop by with. And they can, and they have stories of their own. I'm sure, like, oh yeah, my man, like, oh, my husband does blah 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 blah, and then that becomes a relationship. And then you realize, like, when you're not speaking of the negativity, like, what do you guys really have in common? Like, if you're not ragging on your husband, what's left?
Well, exactly. Or you go to a group of women and you're like, oh my God, I'm so in love. I met this great guy, and he's this and he's that, and he does this for me. What do the women do? They like snarl at you. Oh, you'll see. Give it time. You'll see. Yeah. The support's just not there, and
not
it's
for positive. For negative,
no,
you get it everywhere. But for positive, and that's what me and Aziz really want to change. Is not, we need to be mindful of our connections, right? We need to, if we really want to be in a healthy place, that should be seen in every facet of our lives, not just on the forefront, like, hey, I want to be positive, I want to be happy, like it should be like seen in our relationship, through our children, through our work, through who we are daily, like that should be seen throughout. And, it's so easy to connect on negative. It's so easy to say the bad things, but what about the positives? Like, it's so easy to say, hey, for me to tell somebody, oh, your hair looks a mess today, but am I saying, hey, your hair looks really nice today? You know what I mean? Like, are the compliments coming as fast as the negative remarks on what I see? And I think it's really
saying that. Are you even saying your hair looks nice and giving them a way that they can actually change their hair for the better?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it following the negativity? Is it followed by good advice or healthy advice? And everything's about, are you really working towards being in healthy relationships? Healthy and equal relationships should be a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I'm in it or I'm not. And people are negotiating their lives just to stay connected to people who aren't healthy for them.
I think people, and I think people, it's very easy to just kind of go with the flow and what's fun and happy in the moment. But what are you saying? And you know what I mean? Like, are you dishonoring your partner? You made a vow to them. Mm-hmm. It might sound funny with a bunch of girls, but you got to go home and live with yourself. So I think just, being able to step up and be authentic and to who you are and what you're committed to.
Definitely.
Well, yeah, if it's the truth, and your husband already knows about it, then that's one thing. But if you're not really being honest with your husband, but you're talking crap about him behind his back, and then there's nothing in place to remedy that. There's nothing in place to get him to the place that you need him to be, then that's the issue. If you're just complaining just so you can fit in, like that becomes the problem.
I think the biggest issue is, do you have a group of friends who's going to check you when you're doing the wrong thing and going to encourage you when you're doing the right thing?
Yeah.
They're going to double down on your negative behavior, or they're going to really, really hold you accountable for it. And I think that's the bottom line. Do you have people around you that's going to hold you accountable? Do you are you always the adult in the room, or do you have people who are truly taking turns being the adult in the room and really helping each other be the best they can be? But I mean, that's the overall understanding. But, you know, this is the end of the podcast.
Oh yeah,
I
the
started
time
having
passed.
girls talk, I got a little loose. So I just let it, I just sat back and, enjoyed. But, we like to thank Jessica. Thank
Yes,
you
thank
for,
you
you
for
know,
Thank you,
inviting me to
having
be
me
guys.
a
on
guest on
the
our
podcast.
podcast.
It took you a little time, like you said, but, you made it.
Yes,
So thanks a lot. My name's Aziz,
I'm Jerry.
and this is Accountable Love.
Bye. Peace.
Bye, guys.